Hong Kong was not a British colony? That's what a new textbook will tell Hong Kong students starting this September. This as the Chinese regime seeks to tighten its control over the city. Activists say the claim is distorting history and is meant to brainwash the younger generation. Let's take a closer look.
The new textbooks allege that, quote, Hong Kong has been Chinese territory since ancient times. It goes on the claim that the city was only occupied by Britain, but it remained Chinese territory. Hans Jung is a Hong Kong historian and former manager of the Assessment Development Department of Hong Kong. He believes these statements go against historical facts.
The comprehensive contents in the books are distorting history. The rule under a communist regime and altering history are often regarded as twins. Altering the content of textbooks is also part of the need to suppress Hong Kong independence.
According to a United Nations resolution, people who are part of a colony have the right to seek independence. Back in 1843, the Charter of the Colony of Hong Kong laid the legal foundation for part of Hong Kong as a British colony. And in a convention signed in 1898 between the United Kingdoms and the Chinese Qing Dynasty, extended the colony to another part of Hong Kong. It was a lease for 99 years, which ended in 1997. The Chinese Communist Party, or CCP, refers to the agreements as unequal treaties. The historian pointed out that the name does not mean the documents are invalid, just because the CCP seems to reject them.
An unequal treaty is only a moral concept, not a legal concept. A treaty is a treaty.
An Australia-based activist also touched on the issue, saying he believes the CCP's purpose is to deprive Hong Kong's people of the legal system they enjoyed under British rule.
In fact, the CCP wanted to deny that Hong Kong had enjoyed a free, democratic system, including the legal system, inherited from Britain.
The new textbooks appear to be part of Beijing's efforts to change education, after many students participated in the 2019 Hong Kong pro-democracy protests. Beijing has accused the education system in Hong Kong of fostering liberal thoughts that fueled the protests, which rose up against the CCP's influence. The focus of the new textbooks centers on national security, patriotism, and identity. A US-based Hong Kong activist also commented, saying the CCP wants to brainwash students.
They, the CCP, just want to brainwash the new generation, educate and change them to the point that they won't resist. So now they hope to change the facts in the textbook. Then they will change the new generation in Hong Kong to be unable to say anything good of the UK. The CCP is jealous. They just want the new generation to love the CCP regime.
The CCP previously acknowledged that the sovereignty of Hong Kong once belonged to Britain. In the 1984 Sino-British Joint Declaration, the Communist Party stated that, quote, it had decided to resume the exercise of sovereignty over Hong Kong on July 1st, 1997.
Costco is pulling hundreds of thousands of Chinese-made solar umbrellas from its shelves. Authorities say a malfunction can cause the items to catch fire. The U.S. Customer Product Safety Commission, or CPSC, says it received 6 reports of product malfunctions. A person even went to the hospital for smoke inhalation due to one of the incidents. These patio umbrellas were made in China. They were imported into the U.S. through California-based firm Sunvilla. The CPSC says the lithium-ion batteries in the umbrella's solar panels can overheat and cause a fire and pose a burn hazard. The agency is asking consumers to stop using the products and to remove the solar panel puck. Customers should also avoid charging them with the AC adapter. Since 2020, more than 400,000 of these umbrellas have been sold at Costco in the US and Canada. Sunvilla and Costco are contacting all known buyers to offer full refunds.
Shanghai authorities are asking residents to donate to the Chinese Communist Party. They say the funds will go towards combating the pandemic. But locals say they're not happy about the request. Let's take a look.
Residents in Shanghai are taking to Chinese social media to complain about a request from city officials. Locals say the city is asking them to donate to authorities in support of COVID-19 control efforts. According to one of the donation notices, contributions should be made to a bank account controlled by a branch of the Chinese Communist Party. It's called the Municipal Assets Supervision Commission. One notice put out by China's Education Department suggested that each teacher donate at least $15. But the notices don't seem to have had the desired impact. Instead, some residents suspect the city has fallen into a dire financial situation.
We think this signals that the city is in financial trouble for sure. Or else why do they need donations? They must be tight on money. The lockdown lasted for so long. I'm sure they've spent a lot.
Though the more formal notices described donating as voluntary, many internet users said they were pressured or forced to donate. Some of them received warnings saying, "It's not a good look if a few people don't donate." Some such notices also warned the receivers not to share the notice with others or on social media.
They say it's voluntary, but in reality, it's kind of mandatory. You must donate. Those I spoke to this morning are all unwilling to donate, but they don't have a choice.
Some Chinese internet users pointed out that in other countries, governments issued financial aid or other incentives to the people. But in China, it's the opposite. One social media post asked who would compensate the losses that residents have endured. It also noted that authorities have not apologized for the harsh conditions and instead want donations from residents. Shanghai has suffered a significant economic contraction following the city's 2-month lockdown. During that time, people were confined to their homes and factories were closed. The city's total retail sales plunged nearly 50% in April, while hotel and restaurant sales declined by almost 70%.
Now in China, everyone feels insecure. We don't know what tomorrow will bring. The authorities don't tell the truth.
The donation requests quickly became a hot topic on Chinese social media platform WeChat, but related posts started getting removed shortly after.
Will America's premier medical research agency keep sending tax dollars to China for research? A lawmaker asked Dr. Anthony Fauci about it. Here's how he responded.
The National Institutes of Health, or NIH, has sent over 8 million tax dollars to fund research in China. Now a lawmaker is questioning Dr. Anthony Fauci whether that will stop. In a hearing, Senator Roger Marshall says among the nation's considered top threats to the U.S.,
to my knowledge, only China is receiving U.S. research dollars. The CCP controls their scientists and controls the release of research results they work on. However, NIH grants policies requires that grantees to maintain supporting research records, which they cannot do when those records are under control of the Chinese Communist Party. When will you, as director of NIAID, stop funding research in China?
Dr. Fauci is the head of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, one of the largest institutes of the NIH. He's also the chief medical advisor to President Biden. Here's his response to the question.
We have, at the NIH and in other agencies in the federal government, had very productive, peer-reviewed, highly regarded research projects with our Chinese colleagues that have led to some major advances in biomedical research. So I don't think I'd be able to tell you that we are going to stop funding Chinese.
He says the agency needs to have proper peer review when they do fund China, adding,
I might point out that grants that go to foreign countries, including China, have State Department clearance. So anytime that we do fund anything in China or any other country, it has to go through a clearance with the State Department.
Senator Marshall then questioned if the public has enough access to studies from a controversial nonprofit called the EcoHealth Alliance.
But you would not deny that the research done through EcoHealth, that the records, the studies from there, that we still do not have access to them. Is that correct?
Before we hear Fauci's response, here's some background. EcoHealth Alliance found itself at the center of controversy recently, which raised questions about the NIH's oversight over risky bioresearch. Here's what happened. EcoHealth Alliance received grant dollars from the NIH. It used the money to do research with a lab in Wuhan called the Wuhan Institute of Virology. The two experimented on how to make a virus spread more easily among humans. And the Wuhan lab later ended up in a massive debate on whether it had leaked the virus that caused the COVID-19 pandemic. As a result, the NIH was dragged into the controversy as it raised questions about whether it maintains enough oversight over studies that could be risky. Here's how Fauci responded to the question.
Senator Marshall, we have access to an extraordinary amount of information that has gone there. There is a question that people raise with things gone on there that we didn't have access to. But if you look at the grant, the $120,000 to $130,000 a year grant that was given from EcoHealth as a subaward in China to ask a very relevant, high priority question, we have received from them published literature with data that shows that they have done what they were given the grant for. Now, obviously, none of us know everything that's going on in China, but if the question at hand is the rather small grant, peer-reviewed, high-priority grant that was given from ECO to China in a sub-award, we have a lot of good information that's in the public.
EcoHealth Alliance obtained over $3 million from the NIH from 2014 to 2019, and a fifth of that went to the Wuhan lab. That's according to reports from news outlet The Intercept.
Recently, the World Health Organization has been pushing the idea of a global pandemic treaty. Critics say the proposal could take away countries' sovereignty, as well as directly impact their economies. The Biden administration proposed the amendments in January. If passed, they would give the WHO's Director General unilateral authority to declare a public health emergency in any nation, based on whatever evidence the director cites, and also power over how countries respond to future pandemics. This comes as the organization's credibility has already faced questions, following its apparent compliance with China's initial cover-up of the COVID-19 outbreak in Wuhan. How are China and the WHO linked? First, let's look to the man currently in the WHO's top seat, the Director General. During his election back in 2017, media outlets reported that Tedros was backed by China. We could not independently confirm this fact, but right after his victory, Tedros told Chinese officials that he would lead the WHO to further cooperate with China, reiterating the organization's adherence to the One China principle. That's the policy that recognized Beijing instead of Taiwan as the sole legal government of China. 50 years ago, Taiwan was expelled from the WHO after the United Nations switched its recognition from Taiwan to the Communist People's Republic of China. The Chinese Communist Party considers the island a breakaway province, hence the One China principle, despite it never having been ruled by the party. Right now, Taiwan is blocked from becoming a WHO member and has also been recently rejected from participating in WHO conferences as observer. It has led to difficulties for Taiwan in combating the pandemic. The World Health Organization has also come under criticism over its response to the first outbreak of the virus in late 2019. As a global health body, the WHO is responsible for alerting member states to major public health emergencies. That's by declaring an event as public health emergency of international concern. But a U.S. congressional report says the WHO failed to do so early on in the pandemic, despite having the information available to make the decision. The report comes from the House Foreign Affairs Committee. It's an investigation into Beijing's cover-up and the WHO's missteps in handling the virus. The report gave some examples. First off, Taiwan. The island warned the WHO about the virus cases in China as early as December 2019. It also alerted the WHO that there were risks of human-to-human transmission. The only response that Taiwan got was that the information had been forwarded to the WHO experts. 2 weeks later, the organization published a statement saying Chinese authorities hadn't found any evidence of human-to-human transmission. That's despite the WHO being obligated to look into such reports and share findings with member states. Taiwan argues the WHO ignored its warnings because of China's influence. China is a member state and a donor, and has repeatedly objected to Taiwan becoming a member. On January 22, 2020, the WHO found evidence of human-to-human transmission, but Director Tedros still decided not to declare it a public health emergency. Instead, he traveled to Beijing 5 days later. While there, he praised the Chinese regime's handling of the virus. Tedros called Beijing's transparency very impressive and beyond words. He also said that Beijing was actually setting a new standard for outbreak response. A week later, the WHO finally made a statement. It declared the virus outbreak as a public health emergency of international concern. The U.S. immediately took action. The next day, Washington put a travel ban in place and restricted travel from China. But Tedros argued the travel ban was unnecessary, saying it would interfere with international travel and trade. At the time, China already saw hundreds of deaths and tens of thousands of infections from the virus. Authorities halted flights to Wuhan, the epicenter of the outbreak, but millions of Chinese citizens were still traveling abroad. In February, the WHO praised Beijing once again. Despite Beijing's cover-up of the virus, the organization said China was protecting the global community and, quote, creating a stronger first line of defense against international spread. And even though the virus had already been spreading for weeks around the globe, the WHO did not declare it a pandemic until early March. By that point, the virus had already spread to over 100 countries and caused over 120,000 cases.